Hey everybody, Happy New Year. I hope everybody's doing well. Before we get into this video, I wanted to spend some time reviewing a BenQ product who I have proudly partnered with for this video. Today I'll be reviewing their desk space saving product known as ScreenBar. ScreenBar is a USB light that aims to optimize your gaming setup. Its lightweight and sleek features keep your gaming and general workspace less cluttered and more organized. ScreenBar has unique features that promote focus and comfort while gaming through its anti-glare technology, adjustable brightness, and color temperature settings to relieve eye strain. The buttons are on top and they're super easy to control, as you can see in the footage, and the lamp is made of lightweight aluminum and it's very easy to set up, as you can see by the simplicity of the packaging and only having 3 parts that are super simple to put together. It clips right onto your monitor with ease, and there's even a version made for laptops. I understand that it's a bit pricier than your standard desk lamp, but if you're someone with limited workspace but you also want to try and invest in a setup, it is very much worth it. I have a rather small setup, so having a standard lamp on there made it harder for me to read chat during streams and gave me less room to work with in general. Look at the before and after. It might not look like much, but everything makes a difference when you have to go small like myself. It's helpful for gaming, streaming, and even doing homework. Some people who go to college live on campus, of course, so this might help you out a lot because you might have a roommate. You might not have that much space available to you. I really wish I had this for when I lived on campus and when I did that pack opening back in November. It would have made my life way easier. If you have some extra money laying around or some Amazon gift cards for Christmas, then consider taking a look at this product through the link in the description. Special thanks to BenQ for giving me this opportunity to review their product, and now on to your regularly scheduled video. The greatest of all time, also commonly referred to as the GOAT. It's a terminology thrown around all the time in the sporting world. You hear it so much with guys like Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, Wayne Gretzky, and many, many more. We have long established people of high standing and dominance like these guys as the best of the best. But what about esports? More particularly, what about Overwatch? The game only came out in 2015, but we've long since seen a lot of all-time greats arise throughout the game's brief history. But even so, because the game hasn't really been out for that long when you really think about it, it feels to me like this conversation is not something that has been brought up all that much, and I kind of want to hear what people have to say about it, to be honest. So I thought I would take some time to throw out some general discussion points to get us starting. Today I'm going to be naming some of the potential players I believe you could consider to be the GOAT of Pro Overwatch. Now, disclaimer, I'm not going to give you a definitive number one answer because I really don't know yet myself. I'm more so trying to convey my thought process into some of the names who could reasonably be discussed, at least in my opinion. As a person big into traditional sports, there's a possibility that my criteria may be different than yours, so try to keep an open mind. So for criteria, I like to think of a few different things. One of the biggest is, of course, winning. If you have won major championships, it definitely does help your case. Now, of course, some people get carried to relevance, but it's not entirely difficult to identify the key pieces in a championship run. There's also the idea of being one of the best ever on a certain character and or position. Think of one of those all-time greats who dominated their respective role and became a legend on a character at the same time that everybody modeled their play after. If you are somebody who everybody strives to be like, then that's worthy of the highest praise in my opinion. Some other things that you could go into, I would say, are longevity and consistency. If you can stay at the top of your game through multiple majors and pour out solid play for many years, then you are definitely one of the best. Another thing I tend to look at, but I know some of you find very overrated, is the clutch gene. Again, it's my traditional sports roots talking here, but when you're making those unforgettable plays during a big game, it shows how much more you want it than your opposition. Other things to consider are versatility and flexibility. Playing multiple heroes at a high level while showing the ability to adapt and play well in different environments and team styles is something you cannot overlook in some instances. So, there's quite a few people that would probably make my list if I was talking about potential GOATs, but because I want to try and keep this video from being way too long, I'm just going to talk about 3 of them if that's okay with you. So if I was in a life or death scenario where I had to answer this question, these are 3 of the people I would likely have on my list of people to choose from. First up is Rio Jae Hong. He had his blunders in the Overwatch League, but his career before that point is one of the best you'll ever come across. The back-to-back Apex titles are the big thing that definitely stand out, of course, since this was the biggest thing we had pre-OWL. He also won both collective MVP awards in those 2 seasons of Apex, by the way. He was part of that amazing Lunatic High roster, and he was arguably their best player too. There were a lot of incredible players on that roster, but he seems like the guy that people talk about the most when referencing that team, and it mostly has to do with the consistency of his play at the flex support position, I would say. There was a good stretch of time where he was considered by most to be the #1 support player on the planet, and I would argue that probably did not change until 2018. The spotlight was pretty much always on him for most of 2017. While I'm on the topic of winning, I might as well bring up his 2 World Cup gold medals. Listen, even if you don't really take this competition all that seriously, 2 gold medals are still 2 gold medals at the end of the day. That's 2 more first place finishes in events that people give a reasonable amount of attention to. There's a few blunders here and there, but if you look at his complete competitive history before the Overwatch League, there's a lot of first and second place finishes on there. It wasn't until he joined the league where he finally started to fade from relevance. There were a lot of hardships at this point in his career, which is something you can definitely knock him for in the GOAT conversation, but I don't entirely blame him for the small amount of success he found in the league. Season 1 had so many internal issues that affected everybody's play, not just his, but even so, he still wasn't even that bad individually. In Season 2, we can probably say he played a part in that crazy NYXL upset, plus the Dynasty finally making the playoffs and breaking the curse. Then there's Season 3, but you can't really knock him for that disaster either because Vancouver's management was just ridiculous. Again, he could have been better individually at the Overwatch League level throughout his career, but in my honest opinion, there were quite a few negative influences that seemed to be out of his control. So overall, I would say that he was never #1 while being a part of the league, but definitely still was a solid flex support. Anyway, next we should probably talk about the Legacy of Azana. He was a pioneer of the playmaking on a breed. For a long time, nobody did it quite as good as him. The way he consistently hit his cooldowns and pivotal moments was something to marvel at. He is what all pro Ana players were striving to be like literally for years. I would argue he is largely responsible for the rise of future flex support gods, like G.O.A.T. He went on record saying that Jae Hong was his role model, I believe, and I'm sure there's many others who I don't know about who also feel the same way. Even to this day, he is still going to be a name you hear when there's a conversation about the best Ana players ever. He's a staple. His other heroes don't really compare to his Ana, sadly. I mean, there's no shame in that because his Ana is legendary, but still, that might be another reason why you could consider knocking him. He's never been bad at Zen or anything like that, but it doesn't really compare to some of the all-time great Zenyatta players that immediately come to your mind. Those are pretty much the only 2 heroes Jae Hong primarily played in a pro setting, though. I can't really get on his case for a character like Baptiste because he never got much of a chance to play him. It's hard to get on him for flexibility when some of the prime characters that we see in today's game are kind of past his time, you know? But overall, I would say Jae Hong has a great case that can be made for him due to the winning, a good prime, and his legendary Ana. But is he the GOAT? I'll leave that up to you. For me, he's close, but I don't really know. But some of you may be asking, what about Miro? He's someone that a lot of people talk about usually when we go over this conversation. Well, he definitely does have some of the same qualifications. He taught the world how to play Winston and was part of that Lunatic High team as well. And he did win the very first World Cup that happened. But I do feel that Miro's validity is heavily diminished because of the Overwatch League. At least Jae Hong managed to stay relevant after the first year. Once Miro started getting less playtime, his career was over just like that. It's not like Jae Hong, who showed great perseverance. I like Miro a lot, believe me, but I feel the league took a great hit on his legacy. The next person I often consider as one of the greatest players ever is Prophet. Prophet haters are going to be falling out of their chairs in disappointment, and I'm very sorry. But the fact of the matter remains that Prophet has been relevant for a very, very long time. He has some of the best longevity in the game's history. Want to know what happened in his first year of playing in a major? He won Apex as part of that GC Busan roster. He won Finals MVP as well thanks to his prolific Genji play. Then this guy joins the Overwatch League and the success continues to pour on. It was a bumpy road filled with hardships, but he won the inaugural season championship and once again was crowned as Finals MVP. So literally in his first 2 majors as a pro, he got first place both times and demonstrated pure brilliance in the clutch while getting 2 MVPs. That stage 1 title where they reverse swept New York is also a nice little bonus, I would say. Prophet haters can say whatever the heck they want, but you can't take away from his success, and you can't deny his performances in the big games. And sure, they didn't win in the end, but he still did help the Dynasty make a grand finals appearance in his first year on the team. I know the meta really favored that Dynasty team a lot, but he undoubtedly played a pivotal role in that crazy playoff run thanks to his consistency. Even if you don't count Season 3, Prophet has been a part of the playoffs every single year he has been a pro. It really goes to show you the versatility this guy has and his ability to adapt to any team situation he's in. He's been on 3 different teams and he's gone to the grand finals with all of them. I think that's something you really can't overlook. He's never been the guy to crush everybody with ease every step of the way, but he always, and I mean always, elevates his play whenever it matters the most in these big games. The lights are never too bright for this guy. He lives for the pressure, and that is one of the things that makes him so great to me. Prophet is no doubt one of the most clutch players to ever grace the game we love so much. Even if he's not your number 1, he surely still does deserve an honorable mention. The proof is there. While Prophet doesn't have that Jae Hong level of recognition on any specific hero, he does at least kind of make up for it with his versatility. Believe me, I'm not one of those Prophet stans who believes he can literally pick up any character in the game. He does have his limitations, as we've seen with characters such as Echo. I've learned my lesson there. But more often than not, he usually does find a way to be impactful on whatever his team needs him to carry on. The earliest example comes from Apex when the team really needed him to play a solid Genji. And that's exactly what he did. Was it the best Genji in that tournament? Not necessarily, but it was one of the best, and that's something Prophet consistently does with a lot of characters. In Season 1, he had to play Tracer, and he was one of the best. He was one of the best Junkrats, and do I even need to bring up the Hanzo during the playoff run? It was absurd, and more of the same was present during the Final Four this year. That Hanzo of his is no doubt one of the best ever, and it's the closest thing you'll see with him to being a god on a specific hero. Or how about when he had to pick up Pharah as another example? I still remember when he had to keep pace with Ding, and he did so in a winner-go-home play-in tournament match. He even proved to have a serviceable Ashe a few different points throughout this year. I know not everybody here cares for stats, but I think his longevity really shows when you realize he has the most hero damage, final blows, and eliminations of all time. He has oftentimes been the person both London and Seoul have turned to throughout the years to step up for them and bail them out. The fact that he's played so much all goes to show you how much these two teams valued him as a DPS player. Prophet has to be in the game. DPS can be a very rotation-heavy position. It's not like support or tank. DPS gets interchanged a lot more, but Prophet stayed in a majority of the time. But don't get me wrong, Prophet does have his flaws. He might be better than most at playing a lot of characters reliably, but he's definitely not perfect. I've never been a big fan of his Mei, his Echo, or his Reaper. He can't flex onto everything in picture-perfect fashion, that's just not how it works. Not to mention that Prophet has been part of some rather inconsistent teams throughout his Overwatch League career. Like with Jae Hong, he surely was affected by some influences outside of his control. But have there been times where he could have been better or more consistent? Of course. The thing that always comes to mind for me when I'm thinking of Prophet flaws is that one play on Oasis against Boston where he completely whiffed that pulse bomb and everybody was really confused. But he's still better off than most, I would say. Prophet's career has been filled with a lot of good, lots of winning, lots of clutch moments, and solid versatility with deep playoff runs everywhere. He has brought great value to every franchise he has ever been a part of. All of this combined makes me believe he should be a part of the GOAT conversation. He's won championships. He's been considered the best DPS in the world at one point. The only thing I can really think of that he's missing from his resume is a World Cup gold medal. Either way, in my opinion, Prophet deserves to be in this conversation. The final guy I'm going to talk about in this video is going to be seen as a major stretch, and a lot of you are probably going to hate me for it because he left us for Valorant. That's right, I'm talking about Sinatraa, because I honestly do think you can make a case for him. It sounds ridiculous, I know, but in my eyes, he has one of the greatest peaks of any player to ever grace the game at a pro level. 2019 was all about Sinatraa. He was one of the best players on the planet. From the start of Overwatch League Season 2 until the World Cup, he was on the top of the food chain. He was a dominant force. His Zarya in the GOATs meta will be talked about for years to come. Somonsu was the only player who could really keep up with him. One player in the entire Overwatch League could consistently match Sinatraa on Zarya. Yes, he did play on a top team, but he genuinely did have a godlike understanding on this character that was even present during his selfless days. Sinatraa was built different on this hero, plain and simple. He was so dominant that he even earned himself the prestigious MVP award. Say what you will about him seeing less playtime when 2-2-2 initially came about, but what people fail to remember is that GOATs was played for a majority of the season. Even in Stage 3, a lot of teams were running GOAT still. Zarya had a very overwhelming presence during the year, and Sinatraa was arguably the best at her. And just when the haters thought that Sinatraa would become irrelevant for good, Doomfist becomes meta and he proves to be one of the best on this character as well, at least in my opinion. Maybe not number one, but definitely somebody who pulled his weight and made some big plays. As a result, he still ends up playing a major role in the Shock's championship run. And overall, he was there for pretty much every other big accomplishment the Shock had, like the Golden Stage, a Stage 2 title, and 3 straight Stage championship appearances. Then after a super intense year that was exhausting and full of grinding, he decides that's not enough and that this is going to be the year that the United States win the World Cup. And that's exactly what happened, all while continuing to show off a prolific Doomfist. Now, I would note that he won World Cup MVP, but I feel like that award is pretty much a popularity contest in the World Cup. If you still count it for something, then that's cool, but I personally don't. Sinatraa did all of this in basically less than a year though. MVP of the league, a championship, a gold medal, all while being a centerpiece of those respective teams. It's one of the best peaks a player has ever had in my eyes. It's comparable to Jae Hong, one of the best ever on a specific character, multiple victories at majors in less than a year, and MVP status. Sinatraa had the legendary work ethic and perseverance. He did a lot of growing up after a rough 2018, and he matured into a real leader and legitimate superstar. I've never been a huge Sinatraa fan, but I do respect what he's achieved. I will admit though, if you're somebody who is not all that impressed by his peak for whatever reason you have, it can be easy to knock him out of this conversation. For one, he's never been all that flexible. Zarya, Tracer, Doomfist, Sombra, and Genji are all he's ever been good at, and some of those characters he's still not even that amazing at compared to some of the other great DPS players of the game. Flanker heroes seem like the only thing that he has going for him besides the Zarya. He never could pick up sniper heroes, and his hit scan has never been the best either. It made his teams kind of one-dimensional in a way if they needed to suddenly change their game plan mid-game. I, for one, think he's a bit more flexible than people give him credit for, but the problem is a lot of the time the heroes that he's good at weren't getting that much playtime in the league. And for some of the stuff he was good at, his teammates tended to just be better at said characters, like Architect on Genji or Striker on Tracer, just to name a few examples. If Sinatraa never retired, I'm pretty sure he would have gotten exposed as a bench player with not much use this year overall. Another fair point to bring up if you're going against Sinatraa as the GOAT is that he did have a tough beginning to his career. He was hailed as a prodigy, but failed to live up to the hype a lot of the time during that inaugural season of his. The pressure definitely got to him at least a little bit, and he had major overconfidence issues as seen with that embarrassing loss to the UK in the 2018 World Cup. Sinatraa is nowhere near perfect, believe me, but the simple fact remains that he reached peaks that most people could only dream of attaining, which in my opinion makes him one of the best players of all time. I think I'm just going to wrap it up there though. I could definitely go on and on about just these three players alone, hence why you can tell why I decided not to go with a bunch of people all in one video. But I definitely want to talk more about some other players that I didn't really get to in this video, so maybe I should make this into a series. Let me know if you'd like to see that down in the comments. So these three guys in particular kind of all met, I guess you could say, my own personal criteria for what I believe makes you an all-time great. Again, I seriously do believe it's far too early to determine who the GOAT is. These are just some ideas and some discussion points to get the conversation started. So now I'm going to turn it over to you. Who do you think should be considered the greatest player of all time, and who's on your list in general, and why do you think that way? Let me know what you're thinking down in the comments below. Also, consider sharing this video to anybody or any place who you think might want to continue this conversation, because I really want to see the entire community discuss this. Let's get an idea for what the common consensus is for the way too early, but still really fun to talk about anyway, community GOAT. But I think that's just about going to do it for me, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. If you did, it would mean so much to me if you could give this video a like, and subscribe if you're interested in more pro Overwatch discussion videos such as this one. While you're at it, consider following my Twitter and becoming a channel member if you want to give me a little extra love. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate you a lot. And until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.